Welcome aboard again. It is Train Tuesday, and I'm your host, Jim Wiggin with Athearn. And as we always say, I got a great show planned for you today. We're going to talk Roundhouse. We're going to show some of the Roundhouse offerings that are offered this month. You have until the 24th, which is a Friday, to place any pre-orders on these items we're about to show. Before we get started, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to see who's out there. So let's see who's out there today joining us out in Train World. We've got Taylor, Eugene, KC, Christopher, Darren. Let's see, Gordon, Shannon, Ronald, Maurice, Joel asking for nachos and working Sanders. Wait for that in a Genesis 2.0 release. Stephen, Terry, Anthony, Keenan, Derek Glass, Anthony, just a few of the people that are joining us here today on Train Tuesday. Like I said, we were talking Roundhouse. We're going to talk about all the Roundhouse items that are in this month's announcement, and those pre-orders are due Friday, September 24th. It doesn't seem like it, but as of tomorrow is halfway through the month, and we're heading into fall, which means we're heading into primary working on the model railroad layout season, and hopefully, depending on where you're at, hopefully the opening of train show season. So we're going to talk about Roundhouse. We're going to talk about what happened this past weekend, and hopefully about some new model railroaders that are going to be joining all of us. And then we've got a special announcement towards the end of the show, and then we'll take a few of your questions. So while you're sitting there, think of any good questions that you want to ask at the end of the show. We'll leave a little bit of time for that. Let me go back to see who else is here. We've got Chad, James, Sid, D'Angelo, Gilbert, Chris, Kevin, CJ, Froy, Ronald, all the way from Philly, and Eugene. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Let's do what we always do. Let's go ahead, put our hobby knives down, get into a comfortable position, grab that favorite beverage of your choice, and let's get ready to start Train Tuesday. Now, like I said, we're going to be talking about Roundhouse today. So here we go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. And according to my monitors, we have sound. So here we go. So the first up are these extended height boxcars. These are in the Roundhouse line. And these are great for pretty much what I used this past weekend at RC Fest. These are perfect for operations. And reason being is because maybe you've got some younger guys that like to do operations. Maybe you just have some friends that are not quite as delicate as you are. These have the standard molded on details. There's nothing photo etched. There's no separate details. They do, however, still have really nice metal wheel sets. And of course, those McHenry couplers, and they work just great. And I can say all weekend, even through some enthusiastic would-be modelers, these couplers held up really well. So really happy. So we've got the chassis system here. We had to offer that. That's good for you guys that are doing the 1970s. A few guys going a little bit newer out there, the former Railbox TTX. How about the Death Star? Illinois Central, Death Star paint scheme. Perfect for anybody that's doing the 1990s. Right up until the buyout of Canadian National. And then we've got Guilford, this one lettered for Maine Central. These were real common in the 1980s, soon after Guilford took control over Boston and Maine Central, and D&H. And they all had about the same paint scheme, but they would change the reporting marks to Maine Central, Boston and Maine, or D&H. And so if you're modeling the 1980s, this is a great model. If you wanted to start doing some of your own prime for grime, you could certainly weather this, because I can say from experience, these did not last very clean for very long. They They really got abused. And since they're the waffle style, what we affectionately call the waffle style boxcar, all those little nicks and crannies, they got a lot of dust, a lot of dirt, and they never saw any cleaning in their operational history. SCL, we've got early 80s here. And something a little different than what we've offered before. It's a little bit newer. This is late 80s, early 90s. So again, these cars are perfect for any type of small transportable layout like I brought to RC Fest. Maybe as the shows start picking up again, maybe you're part of an NMRA club or some type of HO scale club that wants to introduce the youth into model railroading. And these are perfect for that. They hold up really well. They have just enough detail to make them look really nice, but not overly done on the detail, so that they take generally they take a pretty good knocking compared to their ready to roll and their Genesis counterparts. Another thing though too is the printing on these is absolutely phenomenal. They're really nice looking cars. They still photograph well. We'll see that in a little bit in the future. Now, moving on, we wanted to do the Roundhouse cattle cars again, 40 foot. And these are kind of neat. These are great for somebody that's modeling turn of the last century. We're talking very late 1800s, 1890, probably about to 1912, 1914. I saw somebody in the comments section for this one on social media last week, and somebody said, "Boy, you know, that's not really smart to paint that white. It won't last white for long." And I'm not sure. Remember, Roundhouse, these aren't 100%, accurate to the last rivet. These are more like your traditional models that you would have found back in the blue box days. Did this paint scheme exist? I'm sure it did. Did it exist on this particular car? Probably not. But for Roundhouse, we're trying to open it up for the younger modelers or those that are just wanting to, complete a train. Offering the Union Pacific. What's neat about these cars too is if you look, they really are open like that. You can see the different slats. The top is fully enclosed, whereas the bottom is open. And they all have the truss and rod system and the older arch bar trucks. Cotton belt. Here's one for the Rock Island that's really cool. And pretty simple paint schemes. They are all pretty much a standard oxide red or brown, depending on the railroad. And, they would have simple designs. Now, Brad, I'm going to put Brad says CN and CP stock cars were in fact painted white on the lower half. Actually, they were whitewashed. So there you go. I've said it before, and others have said it before me. There is a prototype for everything. So even though it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, they ended up doing that anyways. So again, if you're a modeler of the late 1800s, early 1900s, or turn of the last century, these cars are perfect for your layout. And we offer these from time to time. You'll notice in the last few announcements, we've announced a lot of these older cars, and that's because there's still folks out there that model this time period, and we want to make sure that you guys are not getting overlooked. Let's see. I'm just kind of going through here and seeing if there's anything, anybody has any questions or comments. Let's see. No, it looks like everybody's pretty well rounded out with the cattle cars. So very cool. And again, these are available for pre-order until the end of the month, which is the last Friday of the month, the 24th of September, which, believe it or not, is next Friday. I don't know where the time is going, but it's certainly going fast. Let's see what else we've got. Oh yeah, the cabooses. Now, these have been in the line for a number of years. Now, just because they've been in the line for a number of years doesn't mean that we've just slapped new paint on them. These have been updated throughout every run. They get a little bit of more updating to them. You'll notice too that depending on the prototype, there's a different style of truck. So pay attention as we go through the slides. Now, when we announced these back at the beginning, or I'm sorry, the end of August, we talked about this Burlington Northern caboose, and some of you may be scratching your head saying, well, Burlington Northern didn't, that 1970, we're talking 1970 here. Surely those wooden cabooses would have been gone by now. And no, they weren't. There were a few examples of wooden cabooses of various heritage that did get painted Cascade green with the yellow ends like you're seeing here. And another thing, these Roundhouse cabooses are perfect for kit bashing. EJ and E. I see the difference. I'm going to go back. Take a look at the trucks. Look at the Burlington Northern. So what you see is what you get. What you order is what you get. You will get specific to this particular item style of trucks that you see here. And these are cool cars. I mean, a lot of them lasted into the 50s. Some of them lasted into the 60s. And in the case of the Burlington Northern, they last until, very early 70s. Grand trunk with the lineage look to it there. We all know who owned Grand Trunk when this logo was being used. Always reminds me of maple syrup for some reason. I don't know why. And then the Sioux line. 1950s paint scheme. This was a very common logo that they used in that time. And so if you're modeling transition era on most of these cabooses, with the exception of Burlington Northern, these are perfect. They're a great, acceptable caboose to use. So definitely something to consider. And again, like I said before, these are great for kit bashing. These are based primarily on the blue box era, but they've been updated, like I said. You're going to get metal wheel sets. You're going to get the better couplers. No more horn hooks, thank goodness. You're going to have really a great base for something to do some kit bashing on if you're so inclined. Or you can just simply take these out of the package and run them with your grandkids, run them with your, whoever is interested at a younger age of operating. These are perfect for that. They got just enough detail to look really nice and not get broken easily. So yes, let's see what we've got out there for comments, questions, and Eric has got some comments. The SP&S, yep. He is not kidding. And if you don't believe us, it's in a caboose book. I don't know the name of the book off the top of my head. I should, because I own the book, but he's absolutely correct. Some of these did find their way into Cascade Green with the big stylized Burlington Northern logo. So again, there is a prototype for everything. Let's see. Any other questions? Questions or comments? Here's a cool comment from Richard, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Richard writes, I won an NMRA award for super detailing one of these cabooses in Santa Fe back in the mid-90s. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, I mean, back in the day, that was what we had. We're kind of spoiled as modern day modelers, and it's hard to believe that the 90s were almost 30 years ago. But we're really spoiled nowadays. If you look at Genesis and Ready to Roll, they're pretty much ready to go right out of the box. Maybe do some weathering. If there's some finer details that you want to put on, you can. But in the old days, it was not uncommon for somebody to buy an old blue box boxcar and immediately put it into a vat of brake fluid to remove the paint, but you don't have to do that anymore. And carefully and slowly remove any molded on detail, and then drill number 80 holes and get all the different detail parts and paint it and all that. That was real common at one time. If you wanted that level of detail and craftsmanship, you had to do that route. Otherwise, you just had a standard kit that still looked good. You still had to update it a little bit with weight, metal wheel sets, different couplers. But, you know, these really were the basis for a lot of people that have done similar achievements. So, yeah, thanks for writing that in. All right. Let's see. I just saw something I want to throw out there because I might have glossed over it. Now I seem to have lost it, but Ian had a comment on the Grand Trunk that I wanted to throw out there. All right. So Ian does have another question. He's asking about the CP Rail GP9s. How are they coming along? So pretty much, it brings up a good question. And again, sometimes the website isn't quite as clear as it could be. Let's take that example. If you were to go to the Athearn website and you'd go to the GP9s, you'd have an ETA date, an estimated time of arrival. Now, if we say December 2021, please keep in mind at this point, that is an estimated time of arrival. Things could change. And as you know, with everything going on in the world, there have been some shipping delays. There have been some container shortages. There's all kinds of different factors that come into play. So as much as we want to nail that December delivery date, that's not always the case. Sometimes there are factors that are beyond Athearn's control. That being said, watch the website. And if you pre-ordered, well, then you shouldn't have to worry too much because your dealer will give you a call when they come in. But if you didn't pre-order and you're anxiously awaiting for these locomotives to arrive, just stay tuned on the Athearn website. Those dates will get updated as we get closer to that month. So right now, everybody was asking me over the weekend about the GP38-2s. We're getting closer to having a firm date. So in the next week or so, we should start seeing some details on the website as far as the estimated delivery time. But that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Good to hear. The SD70s, I'm glad to hear that they're pleased. Alaska's a popular railroad, and we also know that Alaska modelers are very particular, and we appreciate the fact that he's pleased with those. So thank you. Okay, so I want to talk about some other stuff. We got just a little bit of time left here, and let's see. I've got some pictures to share with you guys of RC Fest. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger. So as I was saying, RC Fest is kind of an open house for Horizon Hobby. It allows dealers and customers alike to come to Central Illinois and experience everything that Horizon has. Horizon has everything from RC cars, trucks, boats, airplanes, you name it. And of course, trains. we're very happy to show up and be a part of our brothers and sisters in the RC industry. And so we set up a small tabletop booth. As you can see here, this is an outdoor show. So it's a little different than your typical train show. But we were under the big top. And we had a little display here. Here you can see the Genesis -9s. You can also see the Genesis GP38-2s. Let's see if I can zoom in for you guys. There we go. We got the GP38-2s there. We also got some of the GP15-1s, which are very, very hot commodity right now. We got some ready to roll covered hoppers and a trailer. And then we can get a better picture of this later. But here is the display layout that I've been working on. Just another angle. And remember, we were talking about the Roundhouse boxcars earlier. Well, here's some Roundhouse 50-foot double-door boxcars that just came into stock. And again, if maybe you're an older person that has a layout that's home layout that's 90% finished, and you've got a son or a daughter or a grandson and a granddaughter, and you're not quite sure you want to use your big boy in those Genesis reefers, when they're over. So, you grab the Roundhouse like these. And these are perfect. Now, what we did all weekend long, and I think I've got something here else for you to look at. Let's take a look. We've got in the studio there we go. You can see me towering over it. You can see the actual layout that we had, or part of the layout that we had at the show. So it's real simple. It's just an inglenook. If you're not familiar with an inglenook, it's just basically a main line, if you will, with two little spurs. And we've got Horizon Hobbies warehouse here. And what we did is we put signs up to help the younger modelers know where to spot the boxcar. So we would say, hey, this boxcar is filled with Spectrum radios and it needs to go to the Spectrum door. And this one is filled with E-Flight airplanes. It needs to go to the E-Flight door. So a lot of fun. And you would basically have to move the correct boxcars to the actual doors. Now, what we did, since a lot of the folks have not done a switching layout before or any type of operations, we made it so that little tiny pictures of the different cars would go to a planning sheet on the table so they could see, oh, the Sioux line goes to the Spectrum door and the New York Central goes to the E-Flight door. So they had a visual representation. It wasn't a written down list, and it also allowed me to change it every time somebody wanted to operate the layout. Once they got done doing the actual operations, they were then entered into a chance to win a Genesis locomotive. They also, depending on their age, they got a little certificate that we showed a few weeks ago that they got to be an Athearn engineer for the day, and that was a big hit with a lot of the younger guys out there. And at the end of the day, on Saturday, a young Eli won the GP7, and I don't know about you guys, but if you look at that smile, I'm pretty sure we've got a new guy hooked into the hobby. That smile of enthusiasm says it all. So Eli had never operated a train before. He came to the Athearn booth. He ran the train, did a great job, and ended up going home with a brand new Genesis GP7U. And hopefully that's going to help him start out a new hobby and, the best hobby in the world, model railroading. So that was a fun weekend. It was a long weekend. but it was really rewarding to see people that we normally would not see at a train show come into the booth and talk to us. Now, we also had a display layout from a local gentleman. His name is Isaac, and you'll probably be seeing more from him as well. He's modeling 2008 Central Illinois with the Canadian National /IC. He had a really nice layout there. Again, 1 foot by 8 foot point-to-point switching layout, and very, very interesting. Don't be fooled into thinking that a layout with just one turnout is simplistic. He did a great job explaining how modern operations work. So great weekend. Now, something else before we go on to questions, I wanted to let you guys know that we've got something special lined up tomorrow night. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th at 5 o'clock Central Daylight Time, we've got a special program. You hear me talk about the developers all the time and what they're working on, and they're busy at work, not only making new items, but updating older items into better standards. And we have the opportunity to talk to Jonathan Stackpole, who's our lead developer. And I'm excited to tell you that he's got some great stuff that he's working on. He wants to share it with you. We want to show you what we're working on and give you an idea what it takes to make some of these models. It's a lot easier for us to dream up this stuff, but actually putting pen to paper or mouse to screen, if you will, there's a lot of work involved. And John's going to take some time to show us not only what's going on behind the doors of development, but what it takes to get to that point. And then if we have time, we'll be taking some questions from you. So if you get a chance tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Daylight Time, join us for this great piece of information that we're going to be giving you. And I can just tell you that you're going to want to see this. We've got some great stuff lined up. We've got answers for some of you guys that have been asking, and just some new stuff that, well, quite frankly, I think you're going to be happy with. So I want to thank John for coming on the show with us tomorrow and spending time. And he's already shared with me a lot of this information, and it's kind of hard to keep it under wraps. So like I said, stay tuned tomorrow at 5. All right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time taking some questions out there. We got a little bit of time, and let's see what everybody's working on and what questions that we got. Let's see, Herc, that's a pretty good question. What is Athearn doing to record and keep all of its products for future reference? Is there a database for the production history of this great company? Well, thank you, Herc. Yeah, I'm a little biased, and I think if you ask any of the Athearn employees, they're really biased. 75 years. That's a great legacy for a model company. Yes, there is a database. It's constantly updated. Throughout the years, it's been updated. But of course, back in the old days, it was done with typewriter and paper, and nowadays it's done with a digital database, and that is constantly updated. In fact, one of the things that John will probably talk about tomorrow is how we go into that database, and we'll see certain locomotive projects or certain rolling stock products and see what needs to be updated, because sometimes some of those models were designed in an era that the fidelity just didn't allow us to complete it to today's standards. And some of the things that we do is update those older things to modern day standards. So great question. There is a lot of information in there too, trust me. Joel says, I know what it takes, molds. Well, that's part of it. That's the easy part, really. If you think about it, molds are easy. It's the research. It's the research. It is the, if you were here last week to see the interview with Jack, it's research. There's so much information out there on these locomotives, on these freight cars, that we have to check repeatedly. And then we get to start doing the 3D work on the computer. And even then, we're still in a research mode. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Let's see what else we've got for comments, and then we're going to go ahead and pull the pin on this episode and let you guys think about what we got planned for tomorrow. Let's see what we got. Richie, I'm going to grab you here. When Athearn does the SD70 Aces again, please do the headlight above the cab. Well, Richie, that's one of those things where, like I was telling you about, research. Off the top of my head, I don't know as much about the SD70 Aces as, say, John does, because John is in the trenches in research. Is that something that can happen? Possibly. Is it something we'll do in the future? Possibly. Some of that hinges on you, though. If you go to the Athearn website to contact us, the product suggestion email, put that in there. And if you've got examples of what you're talking about, we'd love to see it. Because while we do work closely with the railroads, historical societies, and really detail-oriented modelers, we still can always use information. Information is power in this business. Okay, got time for one more. Soon. Let's see. I thought I saw one more question. Harold wants to know, are the parts departments set up at the new location? Yes. Yes. So you should be able to get in touch with them through email. That is all set up as far as I know. Everything is ready to go. So go ahead and give them some contact, and they should be able to help you out. We've been sending out the SD60M repair kits, and we've been hearing a lot of good things about that. And rest assured that the future runs on that will not have that issue. Athearn catalog, you mean like the old-fashioned print catalog? Probably not. The closest thing that you have to that is the monthly announcements, which you usually see on your dealer's wall at the hobby shop. Why don't we do a print catalog? Well, real simple. Things have changed in the last 75 years. And back in a different time, Athearn would produce some of the same boxcars over and over again. So it was easy to say, hey, we're going to do 40-foot Missouri Pacific boxcars for, say 1973. And they'd show them in their catalog, and for that year they would produce those models, and then the next year they would go on to, say, a different railroad. Nowadays we do a pre-order system, so it's a little bit different. And every month, all the artists, the guys you don't see, the guys behind the background, they are busy putting together all this new stuff that the developers have researched. They're putting it into artwork, and they're putting it into the packet. So that's the closest thing to a print packet or a print catalog that we have, is a print packet. But really, with the way information is moved nowadays, 95% of everything that Athearn does now is available online. All right. Okay, and any questions on email, if you go to the athearn.com website, go to the Contact Us page. We have all the contact emails situated right on that page for you to find. So that shouldn't be an issue. All right, well, that looks like we have gotten most of the questions out there today. Like I said, join me again tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Central Time. That's Central. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're from Massachusetts or Vermont, that's going to be 6 o'clock. If you're on the other side of the coast, it's going to be earlier. But if you're in the Central Time Zone, it's 5 p.m. And we did it a little bit later this time because we know a lot of you guys may be working and want to see this live so you can ask John some of these questions. So we did this one a little bit later, and hopefully you guys appreciate that. Hopefully that works out for you guys. But until I see you guys again tomorrow night, I want to wish all of you out there to be safe, be happy, be healthy, do some modeling, and until next time, high greens, everybody. Take care.